Sometime during 1999, I was called by a very reliable Palestinian dealer that I knew for many, many years, who asked me to assist him in selling an inscription. It seemed to be very interesting. And I was ready to assist him only under one condition, that it will be offered only in Israel, within Israel, and to a museum in Israel. After they will authenticize it.
Golan said that the owner hadn't wanted to be identified, which was why he'd hired a private detective. However, the owner had since died, and his widow had the stone. But she was somewhere in the occupied territories, and Golan didn't know how to contact her. But Oded Golan did reveal one vital piece of information: where the stone had been discovered.
It was found very near to the eastern wall in the Muslim cemetery in Old Jerusalem, outside the Temple Mount.
It was stunning news. Here was confirmation that the stone had been unearthed just yards from where the Bible said that Solomon's temple had once stood. But then the story of the stone took another remarkable turn. The reason? Another ancient biblical artifact. Something called an ossuary, or bone box. Jewish families once used ossuaries to store the bones of the dead in caves and burial chambers. They were commonly used in Jerusalem and can still be found in caves today. In 2002, one very special ossuary appeared. Inscribed on the side were the words, "James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus." It was heralded as the first physical evidence of the existence of Jesus Christ and caused a worldwide sensation. It was displayed for the general public in Canada, in the Royal Ontario Museum, and the exhibit received almost 100,000 visitors. And strangely, the owner was Oded Golan. Journalist Boaz Gaon found Golan's connection to both the stone and the ossuary just too good to be true.
As soon as we made the link, we knew that something is sort of very strange here, because the same collector was seen to be linked to these two incredibly dramatic artifacts. It either was an extremely wonderful stroke of luck or something very suspicious.
The Israeli authorities were also suspicious. They raided Golan's apartment and storehouses. There they found the ossuary, perched on a toilet. And they also unearthed the elusive stone. With the artifacts now in their possession, the authorities set up a committee of linguists and scientists to determine once and for all the authenticity of the ossuary and the stone. Victor Horowitz, Israel's leading expert on royal building inscriptions, was asked to examine the writing on the stone.
The language, and therefore the style of the inscription, is Biblical Hebrew. It's eloquent, it's elegant, it's charming. I enjoy reading it.
But as he examined it more closely, he found something that didn't quite make sense. It was all to do with the key phrase, "I made repairs to the temple," or in Hebrew, bedek habayit.
The main problem in this inscription is this expression, va'as et bedek habayit. In one word, this is an anachronism.
According to Professor Horowitz, bedek habayit had a different meaning in the time of the Temple of Solomon to the meaning it has today. In modern Hebrew, it means to repair. But in ancient Hebrew, it meant the exact opposite, to damage. So its use in this inscription made no sense at all.
Va'as et bedek habayit v'hakirot saviv, which means, if I translate, I made damages to the temple. Now, this, in a royal building inscription, where the king is taking pride in what he's done in the temple repairs, to say that he damaged the temple is absolutely ridiculous.
Victor Horowitz now had real doubts that the stone had been inscribed in the time of Solomon's temple, almost 3,000 years ago.
Unfortunately for the author, where he gets to the main part of the inscription and says, I made the bedek habayit, he fouled up and he put in modern Hebrew.
But not everyone agreed with Horowitz's interpretation. Professor Chaim Cohen is another expert in ancient Hebrew. He believes that there are so few texts discovered from the time of Solomon that no one can be sure how the language was used 3,000 years ago. It was simply the way the stone had been found that made everyone suspicious.
Had the inscription been found in controlled archaeological excavations, it would have prompted scholars to say that now we must relook at the way we've been seeing the vocalization in our Hebrew Bibles to date.
Professor Cohen believes that if the stone had been found in a formal archaeological dig, no one would have questioned it. They simply would have seen the inscription as clarifying the use of ancient Hebrew words. Beyond that, he was convinced that the stone could not have been the work of someone who made clumsy mistakes.
If it is a forgery, then the forger must have been a near genius as far as the level of sophistication that we find in this inscription.
The linguistic evidence was inconclusive. There was still no hard reason to doubt that the stone had come from the Temple of Solomon. Everything now hung on the investigations of the scientists on the committee. The focus of their attention was the patina, the weathered layer on the outside of the stone. It was this, especially the charcoal particles that were dated to 2,300 years ago, that had convinced the scientists who had carried out the original analysis. Elisabetta Barreto was asked to redate those particles.